What's up, everyone? Today is July 10th of 2022. In today's video, we're going to review the occultic numerology, underline the assassination of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who was allegedly killed by a homemade firearm earlier this week by a man named Tetsuya Yamagami, who was apparently upset at Shinzo Abe, not over his politics, but over his potential involvement with the Unification Church, which is historically a South Korean church. And it's strange that someone would get assassinated with their politics not even part of the problem. So we'll talk about how this connects to another famous man named Abe, or more specifically, Abe. Back in 1865, Abraham Lincoln became the first United States president ever to get assassinated while in office. And in this video, we'll explore the numerical connections between Abraham Lincoln and Shinzo Abe, who was the first former leader of a G7 country to be assassinated since the 70s. So, where do we begin? Well, back in 2015, while Shinzo Abe was still in office as the Japanese Prime Minister, he made a state visit to the United States while President Barack Obama was still in office. And just like any major state visit by a major international leader, this was entirely by the numbers. And how interesting is it that they made it a point to make a very staged visit to the Lincoln Memorial during this trip. And this was back on April 27th of 2015. We'll examine his age on this date as we get into this. But what's important to know here is the symbolism behind all of this. And there's so many similarities between Abraham Lincoln and Shinzo Abe. For once, not only did he visit the memorial, but just like Abraham Lincoln, who was shot in the Ford's Theater, Lincoln was shot from behind. You'll see here John Wilkes Booth with the gun coming up from behind Abraham Lincoln, shooting him, and then Lincoln died several hours later. Similarly, Shinzo Abe was giving a speech on a street when someone snuck up behind him, shooting him allegedly in the head on the first shot, although video says otherwise. And then he too died several hours later. Abraham Lincoln's famous nickname was Honest Abe. And I thought this was interesting in regards to the assassination of Shinzo Abe. Abe's appearance in the Nara prefecture was to promote a politician named Kei Sato, who was a member of the House of Councilors. However, he was originally scheduled to support a different politician named Senshiro Matsuyama. However, just one day before the speech, Matsuyama became embroiled in a corruption scandal. So while Abraham Lincoln was known as Honest Abe, there was a lot of corruption surrounding the Liberal Democratic Party and Shinzo Abe prior to this assassination. So perhaps there was a little bit of dishonesty here. And as far as the time he was assassinated, 11:30 a.m. This is the ultimate number of deception. All of these words on the left side of your screen, summing to 113. So this is definitely a big part of it. We'll get there in a little bit. But another strong connection between Shinzo Abe and Abraham Lincoln is that Abraham Lincoln unified the North and South during the Civil War, with the North winning and the United States remaining one country. And the reason Shinzo Abe was assassinated is because the killer believed he belonged to the Unification Church. Now, the Unification Church was founded by a man named Sun Myung Moon. Followers of my work know that I talk a lot about eclipses on this channel. Eclipses representing the ultimate moment of time, and major events in media and even our own lives seem to be connected to eclipses, both solar and lunar. So here we have a guy who has both the word sun and moon in his name. In this post, we'll focus on how the death of Shinzo Abe is connected to various lunar eclipses. Notice how followers of the Unification Church are called Moonies. In the language of gematria, where each letter represents a number 1 through 26 relative to its position in the alphabet, the name Shinzo Abe has a gematria value of 99. This is the same as the moon using the reverse alphabetic order, the moon also summing to 99. So how strange is it that he's accused of being a Moonie prior to all of this? All right, so let's get into the deeper into the numerology here. And as far as the dates that these all occurred, of course, the assassination of Abraham Lincoln was entirely by the numbers. Notice how Lincoln was shot on April 14th, the date that's written here in the United States as 4/14. If you write out assassination of President Abraham Lincoln in gematria, it sums to 414, just like the date that it occurred. Notice how the name Shinzo Abe sums to 414 in a significant cipher called Satanic Gematria. This cipher begins at the number 36, as the 36th triangular number is 666. You'll also notice that Shinzo Abe equals 144 in the reverse order, and the 14th of April, like the assassination date of Lincoln, can also be written 144, 14/4. Also, former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe also sums to 414 in reverse. So a lot of connections with this date, the original assassination date of Lincoln. Well, measuring from Shinzo Abe's birthday, which falls on the 21st of September, a significant date we'll examine in detail in this video, to the next birthday of Abraham Lincoln is 144 days. These two men with birthdays 144 days apart. The Unification Church, which Shinzo Abe was accused of being a part of, was founded on May 1st of 54. And remember, it was Sun Myung Moon. Well, as far as May 1st, the word moon equals 51 and 15, just like how that date can be written. And it was founded in the year 54. And notice how the word sun equals 54. Well, measuring from the founding of the Unification Church to the birthday of Shinzo Abe later that year is another span of 144 days. Measuring from last year's total lunar eclipse to the date of his death was 1 year and 44 days. Again, Shinzo Abe summing to 144 in reverse. This number 144 shares a deep mystical connection to the number 44. Look what happens when you write out the number 44 in gematria. You get the same two values, 144 and 99. Even the date we write, 4/4, April 4th is 144. Now, why do I point this out with 44? Well, think about the name Abraham summing to 44. Also, Honest Abe summing to 44 in reduction. The word kill famously sums to 44. So it's no question why these numbers are stamped into the death of Shinzo Abe. Here's another strong connection between these two men. If you measure from the assassination date of Abraham Lincoln to the birth of Shinzo Abe, you get 89 years and 160 days. Why are these two numbers significant? Well, consider that Honest Abe sums to 89 in the standard alphabetical order. The word assassination equals 160 in that same ordinal method, which I consider to be the most important in gematria. Also, consider how Shinzo Abe was born in the year 1954, the same year as the Unification Church. Also, the same year that the JSDMF was founded. Did I get that right? No, let's see this. JSMDF. It's the Japanese Navy, essentially. the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force, JMSDF. My bad on the abbreviation. But the man who allegedly killed Shinzo Abe used to serve in this branch. And notice how this branch was also founded in the year 54. Abraham Lincoln died on the 15th of April, the following day. That date can be written 15/4, just like Honest Abe in Gematria. So now, once again, let's focus on how this is connected to the moon. Now, again, the moon equals 99, just like Shinzo Abe. But whenever we're talking about the moon, we commonly talk about the number 666. And this PowerPoint is linked below in the description. And it contains a number of slides that show you how 666 is the ultimate number of the moon. Notice how moon magic square sums to 666 in Gematria. Meanwhile, the sun's magic square actually sums to 666. It was the Nara prefecture where this assassination occurred. Notice how Nara prefecture sums to 666 in the Jewish or Latin Gematria cipher, which I consider to be the most significant large number method in this study. Measuring from the assassination of Abraham Lincoln to the birth of Shinzo Abe once again, we get either 4,666 weeks or 32,666 days. And again, this is just measuring between the assassination of Abraham Lincoln to the birth of Shinzo Abe. All these multiple 666s in that measurement. Now, Abraham Lincoln was the 16th president of the United States, and the number 16 found its way into this death several times. First, consider how the 16th prime number is 53. It's been 53 years since the moon landing. Of course, this all connected to the moon, lunar eclipses. Shinzo Abe officially died at 5:03 p.m. Now, not only does this have the 53 in it, but if you take 5:03 on a clock, this is the 1023rd minute of the day. And in numerology, 1023 represents the number 123. Not only did Shinzo Abe die 53 days after the last total lunar eclipse, but his death also fell 123 days before the next total lunar eclipse. In Gematria, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe sums to 123 in the standard reduction or Pythagorean method. In the alphabetic order, the name Abraham Lincoln sums to 123. The name Abraham on its own also sums to 123. Following the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, several other people were hanged. Look at this. 4 other people, in addition to John Wilkes Booth, ended up dying because of this plot. And this was because there was a big conspiracy around it. This is one of the first acknowledged major conspiracy theories in United States history. And notice how the word conspiracy also sums to 123. Consider how the last U.S. president to be assassinated, John F. Kennedy, was shot in a Lincoln at 12:30 p.m., part of this conspiracy code. And after JFK died, that's what gave birth to the term conspiracy theory. But let's think about this. The 123rd prime number is 677. And when Shinzo Abe paid visit to the Lincoln Memorial with Barack Obama, he was 60 years, 7 months, and 7 days old, with the end date included. So the number 677, the 123rd prime, coded right there into his age. Also worth mentioning that he was 60 years old when he made that visit, and in reduction, Abraham Lincoln sums to 60. But we're going to focus more on how this was connected to the lunar eclipse code. because not only was Abe accused of being a Moonie with the Unification Church, but he also died under the time of Cancer. And Cancer is the only sign that's ruled by the moon. Notice how the word or phrase lunar eclipse sums to 189. Well, Abraham Lincoln was born in the year 1809. Shinzo Abe died on the 189th day of the year. But notice Jewish gematria, where lunar eclipse sums to 533. Measuring from the time he was shot, 11:30 a.m., to the time he died, 5:03 p.m., is exactly 5 hours and 33 minutes. So let's take another glance at Cancer. Again, the sign that Shinzo Abe was killed under. Now, Cancer is not only ruled by the moon, but it's also one of 3 water signs. And notice how the word water sums to 1086. Another significant gematria cipher that we're going to look at here is Sumerian, which is the standard alphabetic order times 6. The name of the shooter in this story, Tetsuya Yamagami, sums to 1086, in English Sumerian, matching water. Another man who has this 186 coded into their gematria is John Wilkes Booth, the man who allegedly assassinated Abraham Lincoln back in 1865. But what about these other numbers? 219, 69, and 75. And actually, we're going to crack open single reduction here to show you this riddle. So John Wilkes Booth has the same gematria as the shooter in this story, Tetsuya Yamagami. In the reverse order, his name sums to 219. Well, consider how the date, the 21st of September, can be written 21/9. Shinzo Abe was born on the 21st of September. His death fell exactly 219 days before the birthday of Abraham Lincoln. When Shinzo Abe visited the Lincoln Monument back in 2015, that was 219 days after his birthday. The Unification Church has a full name, Family Federation for World Peace and Unification. Notice how that sums to 219 in reduction, the church that he was accused of being a part of. What about the 75 for John Wilkes Booth? Well, the name Shinzo Abe equals 705, and Abe died 75 days before his next birthday. And as far as the 78 goes, well, Abe died on July 8th, which is the date written 7/8. Notice how the phrase prime minister equals 78 and 87, just like how the date is written in Japan, the 8th of July. There was very similar coding in the death of President Abraham Lincoln. Notice how the word assassin sums to 101 in the alphabetic order. Lincoln was shot on a date with primary numerology of 101. He was shot at 10:15 p.m., which represents 115. Assassin equals 115 in reverse. And look at Lincoln's age when he was shot, 56 years and 61 days. Assassin equals 56 and 61 in reverse. So as I mentioned earlier, Abe was shot at 11:30 a.m. And the number 113, which we'll look at more in depth in a second, is also connected to the number 33, since 11 times 3 is 33. The 33rd prime number is 137. Abe was shot at Yamato Saidaiji Station, which sums to 137. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe sums to 1037. And again, all of these words that represent lies or mistruths, summing to 113. Dishonest, not honest, fiction, not true, disinfo, not factual, perjury, illusions, politics, bullshit, mainstream, broadcasting, green screen. All of these words summing to 113. Isn't that nuts? So is it really just a coincidence that this man was shot at 11:30? Notice how the name Abe sums to 113 in satanic gematria. But the real kicker here is that when you take the 113th prime number, notice how it's 617, right? Well, there happens to be a cipher called prime numbers, which uses the alphabetic order, but only adds the associated prime numbers. And the shooter here in this story, Tetsuya Yamagami, sums to 617, the 113th prime number. If you ask me, that all comes together a little bit too well. So, to dive a little bit deeper into this total lunar eclipse riddle, we need to look at the man that Shinzo Abe was supporting during his speech in the Nara prefecture when he was shot. So once again, he was originally supposed to be there to support Senshiro Matsuyama, but that was canceled after allegations of misconduct and corruption. So in order not to waste Abe's appearance, they scrambled to find another politician for him to support, and they found Kei Sato. And how interesting is it that Kei Sato was born on July 4th, which is, of course, Independence Day, the national holiday in the United States of America. And as we so strongly showed, this death is connected to the assassination of an American president. So if you measure from the birth of the United States to the birth of this man, you get exactly 203 years. Of course, Stars and Stripes sums to 203. But so does the phrase total lunar eclipse, 203 in the alphabetic order. This death occurred in the Nara prefecture, which sums to 203 with capital letters. Well, Lincoln was shot at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C., and exactly 203 years after Abraham Lincoln was born, Ford's Theater completed an official expansion. Look at this, February 12th of 2012. And that's a curious date, 2/12/2012, right? But this would have been Abraham Lincoln's 203rd birthday, as he was also born on February 12th. By the way, this upcoming Super Bowl falls on February 12th. We'll talk more about that in a second. So Ford's Theater reopens on Lincoln's 203rd birthday. In the language of gematria, Ford's Theater sums to 529, which is 23 times 23. So a couple of big 23 alignments here for this news story. Total lunar eclipse 203. Now, if you measure from this reopening of this theater, which included a new education and leadership museum center, notice how you get a span of exactly 3,800 days from this revision to the death of Shinzo Abe. The name Lincoln equals 38. The word death equals 38. So does murder, 38. Lincoln was even shot on a date with numerology of 38. Last week, I made a video on the death of Tony Siragusa, who was a Super Bowl champion lineman who played with both the Baltimore Ravens and Indianapolis Colts. And I did focus on Siragusa in that video, but I also spent a lot of time talking about Super Bowl 57 and how this game, the numerology of this game, is incredibly connected to the moon. Once again, this is Super Bowl 57, and the word moon sums to 57. The game will also be played on a date with primary numerology of 57. In ancient Hebrew gematria, the phrase for the moon has a value of 223, and next year's Super Bowl occurs in the year 2023. Also in 2023, later that year in October, there will be an annular eclipse that crosses over the southwestern United States. The southwestern United States is where Super Bowl 57 will be played, right outside of Phoenix, Arizona. So this game is so heavily connected to the moon, and this is amplified even more with the fact that it falls on Abraham Lincoln's 214th birthday. Well, the state of Arizona, where this game is being played, was founded on February 14th, the date written 214. On the date of the Super Bowl, it'll be exactly 214 years after Abraham Lincoln was born. Now, if you measure from the death of Shinzo Abe to the Super Bowl, notice how you get 219 days. We talked about this number a lot during the Decode. Abe born on the 21st of September. The name of this unification church, summing to 219. His visit to the Lincoln Memorial was 219 days after his birthday. And he died under the moon sign. And the moon is very representative of feminist energy. Notice how feminism equals 219. My favorite feminism ritual was at the World Cup back in 2018. So that game was played on Sunday, July 15th. And you may recall that that year, a band named Pussy Riot stormed the field in protest for women's rights. And that World Cup final was played 219 days before 2/19/2019. So we're seeing something similar play out here with the moon coding in Shinzo Abe. So, of course, there's more. Check out the links down in the description below for links to my blog. I'll probably be doing a super stream in a couple days. We got a lot to talk about. The Georgia Guidestones were destructed earlier this week, which was a pretty fascinating story. We also had the death of an MLB coach's daughter. A couple more things I want to cover, so look forward to that this coming week. Otherwise, I've been putting more work into the website. We're getting really, really close to launching. I want to say, if not later this month, definitely in August, we will have a brand new website where people can join, pay for memberships to gain access to advanced tools, support the work even further. So more announcements with that coming in the following days. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Peace, love, God bless, and we'll talk to you all soon. See ya.